In the vibrant yet perilous streets of Beijing, where neon lights flicker against the smog-filled sky, Li Mei stands as a beacon of strength and resilience. Her journey to becoming China's strongest is not just a tale of physical prowess, but a testament to her indomitable spirit. Born into a family struggling with poverty, Li Mei's life has been a series of battles, each one tougher than the last. Her father, a once renowned martial artist, now bedridden due to a debilitating illness, instilled in her the discipline and skill that would one day save her life. The underground fighting tournament was her only hope. The prize money promised a way out of destitution, a chance to pay for her father's medical expenses. But this tournament was no ordinary competition. It was a brutal spectacle orchestrated by a notorious crime syndicate led by the infamous Mr. Zhao. Known for his ruthless tactics and insatiable greed, Mr. Zhao ran the tournament like a bloodthirsty emperor, reveling in the violence and despair of those who dared to enter his domain. Li Mei's entrance into this dark world was marked by a mixture of fear and determination. The underground fighting arena was a hellish place, lit only by flickering neon lights that cast eerie shadows across the blood-stained concrete floor. The air was thick with the smell of sweat, smoke, and something metallic that made her stomach churn. As she stepped into the ring, her heart raced, pounding like a war drum in her chest. She could hear the roar of the crowd, a cacophony of bloodlust and excitement that sent chills down her spine. Her first opponent was a towering brute, a man whose muscles rippled with every movement, veins bulging like ropes under his skin. He sneered at her, a cruel grin revealing yellowed teeth, and the crowd cheered, their voices a mix of encouragement and mockery. "You think you can take me, little girl?" he taunted, flexing his arms as if to intimidate her. "You have no idea what I'm capable of," Li Mei replied, her voice steady despite the anxiety swirling within her. She clenched her fists, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Let's see if you can keep up." The fight erupted into chaos. Li Mei moved with the grace of a dancer, her father's teachings echoing in her mind as she dodged the brute's wild swings. Each punch she landed was a testament to her strength, the impact resonating through her body. She could feel the crowd's energy fueling her, their cheers igniting a fire within her. With a swift kick, she connected with the brute's knee, sending him crashing to the ground with a thunderous thud. As he fell, the crowd erupted in cheers, but Li Mei's victory was short-lived. She caught Mr. Zhao's gaze from the shadows, a cold, calculating stare that sent a shiver down her spine. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips as if he were merely watching a game unfold. "Impressive," he called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. But this is just the beginning. As the tournament progressed, Li Mei's reputation grew. She became a symbol of hope for the captives forced to fight, a beacon of defiance against the Syndicate's tyranny. With each victory, she uncovered more of the Syndicate's dark secrets. The fighters were not just competitors. They were victims, trafficked and trapped in a cycle of violence with no escape. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut, and her resolve hardened. She would not only fight for her family, but for all those who had been silenced by Mr. Zhao's cruelty. In the dimly lit corners of the arena, whispers of despair echoed among the fighters. One night, after a particularly brutal match, she sat with a fellow fighter, a young woman named Mei Ling, whose spirit had been crushed by the horrors of the tournament. "They took my brother," Mei Ling confessed, tears streaming down her dirt-smudged face. "He was just a kid, and they promised him a better life." Li Mei felt a surge of anger. "We will get them back," she vowed, her voice fierce. "I promise you, we will end this." Each fight pushed her to her limits, both physically and mentally. She faced opponents with tragic backstories, each one a victim of Mr. Zhao's ruthless empire. There was the silent assassin, a woman named Xu, who had lost her family to the Syndicate's greed. Xu fought with a desperation that made her dangerous, her movements swift and lethal. "I have nothing left to lose," she whispered before their match, her eyes hollow with pain. Li Mei fought fiercely, knowing that each victory meant one step closer to freedom for all of them. But the brutality of the fights weighed heavily on her conscience. She often found herself haunted by the faces of those she couldn't save, their eyes pleading for help. The nights were long, filled with nightmares of blood and violence, and she would wake up in a cold sweat, her heart racing as if she were still in the ring. As she climbed the ranks, Mr. Zhao's attention turned to her. He saw her as a threat, a spark of rebellion that could ignite a fire in the hearts of the other fighters. During one of the matches, he approached her in the shadows, a predatory glint in his eyes. "You're becoming quite the sensation, Li Mei," he said, his voice smooth yet menacing. "But remember, in my world, strength is not enough. You must also know how to play the game." "I'm not afraid of you," she shot back, her fists clenched at her sides. "I will expose you for what you are." He chuckled darkly, leaning closer. "Oh, I look forward to seeing you try, but be careful. The higher you climb, the harder you fall." The final match loomed closer, and the tension in the arena was palpable. Li Mei's heart raced as she prepared to face Mr. Zhao himself. The thought of fighting the man who had orchestrated so much pain and suffering filled her with a mix of dread and determination. She could feel the weight of the fighter's hopes on her shoulders. On the day of the final match, the arena was packed, the crowd buzzing with anticipation. Li Mei stood in the center of the ring, her muscles tense and ready. Mr. Zhao entered with a swagger, his presence commanding and intimidating. He wore a dark suit that contrasted sharply with the blood-stained floor, a sinister smile plastered across his face. "Ready to lose, little girl?" he taunted, his voice echoing through the arena. "I'm ready to end this," Li Mei replied, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling within her. The fight began with a flurry of fists. Mr. Zhao was a skilled fighter, his movements brutal and calculated. He struck with a ferocity that left Li Mei reeling, each blow landing with a sickening thud. But she fought back with everything she had, channeling the pain and anger of all those who had suffered under his rule. The crowd roared as they exchanged blows, the sound of flesh hitting flesh echoing in the air. Li Mei felt the adrenaline coursing through her, pushing her to fight harder. She remembered Mei Ling's tears, the faces of the captives, and the promises she had made. With each punch, she fought for them, for their freedom. As the fight raged on, Li Mei found herself pushed to the brink. Blood dripped from her brow, mixing with sweat as she struggled to stay on her feet. But then, in a moment of clarity, she saw an opening. With a swift kick, she knocked Mr. Zhao off balance, sending him crashing to the ground. The crowd gasped, a moment of stunned silence before erupting into cheers. "You think this is over?" Mr. Zhao spat, scrambling to his feet, fury etched on his face. "I will destroy you." But Li Mei was relentless. With a final surge of strength, she delivered a devastating blow that sent him sprawling across the floor. The impact echoed through the arena, and for a moment, everything was still. As Mr. Zhao lay defeated, the crowd erupted in a frenzy of cheers and shouts. Li Mei stood over him, breathing heavily, her body battered but her spirit unyielding. She had done it. She had conquered the monster who had terrorized so many. But as she looked around the arena, the cheers began to fade, replaced by an unsettling silence. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. While she had defeated Mr. Zhao, the Syndicate's influence was far-reaching, and the fight for justice was far from over. In that moment, she understood the weight of her title as China's strongest. It was not just a badge of honor, it was a responsibility. As she gazed into the eyes of the fighters who had rallied around her, she knew they were all counting on her to lead them toward freedom. As the crowd began to disperse, Li Mei felt a sense of unease settle over her. She had won the battle, but the war was just beginning. The darkness of the underground fighting world still loomed large, and she was determined to shine a light on it no matter the cost. With a heavy heart and a fierce resolve, she vowed to continue the fight, to expose the horrors of the Syndicate, and to ensure that no one else would suffer as she and her fellow fighters had. "Together, we will rise," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the fading cheers. "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning."